We are now in this war. We're all in it, all the way. Every single man, woman, and child is a partner in the most tremendous undertaking of our American history. We must share together the bad news and the good news, the defeats and the victories, the changing fortunes of war.
To fight a global war, the United States needed to mobilize its entire population along what became known as the home front. The government turned to ordinary citizens and leaders of large corporations to help lead the mobilization effort. The response was astounding. American wartime production produced more than 299,000 aircraft, 630,000 jeeps, 88,000 tanks, 1,500 naval vessels, 6.5 million rifles, and 40 billion bullets. By 1945, the United States was producing 60% of all Allied munitions and 40% of the world's weapons. The American public was asked to conserve scarce goods for military use. Products ranging from gasoline to sugar were rationed. Civilians drove less, ate meat less, and often drank less coffee. Children organized scrap drives to salvage rubber and metal for war industries, while their parents joined civil defense units, planted victory gardens, and purchased billions of dollars worth of war bonds. Millions of Americans began paying federal taxes for the first time, and to control inflation, the government put limits on wages, prices, and rents. President and Mrs. Roosevelt were at the forefront of this national mobilization effort, setting priorities and focusing attention on the goals of total victory. They purchased war bonds, had blackout shades hung on their windows, and committed the White House to wartime rationing. The couple's 4 sons all served in America's military. During the war, Mrs. Roosevelt continued the ceaseless activism that had long marked her as America's most public First Lady. She was outspoken in her support for racial and gender equality. She championed the Tuskegee Airmen, women's admission into the armed services, and the right of workers to organize. In 1942, she visited England to offer support to America's allies and returned with detailed reports for FDR. A year later, she conducted a 25,000-mile tour of the South Pacific as a representative of the American Red Cross. The First Lady traveled in military transports, putting herself at risk to visit hospitals, military camps, and Red Cross clubs. During her trip, she saw an estimated 400,000 American servicemen and women. The need for war workers created economic opportunities for women and minorities and advanced the cause of these 2 major social movements. After being threatened by black leaders with a march on Washington, FDR moved to confront racial discrimination in the defense industries by issuing Executive Order 8802, which barred racial discrimination in war plants. To enforce it, he created the Fair Employment Practices Commission. Many women who during the war found employment opportunities traditionally held by men were reluctant to return to the traditional role of homemaker. The opportunities opened for African Americans and women during the war contributed to the emergence of the post-war civil rights and women's rights movements.
Grant us victory over the tyrants who would enslave all free men and nations. Grant us a common faith that man shall know bread and peace, that he shall know justice and righteousness, freedom and security, an equal opportunity and an equal chance to do his best, not only in our own lands, but throughout the world. And in that faith, let us march toward the clean world our hands can make.